life, wisdom.
In this video, I'm going to give you a basic, rudimentary understanding of nutrition to help you avoid chronic disease, obesity, and other illnesses. Scientists believe that modern humans have been on this planet for about 2.3 million years. So I'm going to draw a line, and this line will represent those 2.3 million years. And I'll make a tiny little tick over on this end, which represents the previous 100 years. And the rest of this line represents the last 2.9999 million years before us. And this is what you need to know about nutrition. In the last 100 years alone, there have been very radical changes in the food that people are eating. And there have also been radical increases in chronic disease, obesity, diabetes, and other illnesses. And if we can recall that in those 2.999 million years before that, people were eating a very different diet, then we can hone in on these last 100 years and see exactly what is making people so sick. Maybe you've heard of the paleo diet. And you can really just put that aside because what I'm going to tell you is really way more simple than that. People who promote the paleo diet are aiming to eat the diet that was eaten prior to 10,000 years ago. But it's important to recognize that the foods people were eating prior to 10,000 years ago varied greatly depending on the time of year, where they lived, what culture they were in, etc. So in order to be healthy, you don't have to try and figure out what prehistoric man was eating. You just have to apply a little bit of common sense to understand the massive changes that our food supply has undergone in the last 100 years. Prior to 100 years ago, there were no genetically modified foods. All of the farming was organic because pesticides didn't exist yet. And the only preservative that existed was salt, and perhaps the process of fermentation. There were no artificial colors, no artificial flavors, and there wasn't any MSG or high fructose corn syrup either. There were no fast food restaurants, no enriched white bread or other white flour products. There was no fluoride or chlorine added to our drinking water. And there were no processed box cold cereals either. There were no chemical food additives like trichlorotrifluoroethane or dimethylpolysiloxane. There was no yellow number 5, modified cornstarch, and there were no canola, soybean, or cottonseed oils, and there weren't any hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils either. Obviously, this list could go on, but I think you get the idea. What you need to know is that these changes in food production are really the primary cause of chronic disease, autoimmune diseases, colon issues, digestive issues, food addiction, and probably even most forms of cancer. So if we want to avoid getting fat, sick, and potentially dying an early death, then we need to eat the bulk of our foods as natural as possible. Now, of course, you don't have to eat 100% of your diet in natural foods, but the bulk of your diet should be minimally processed natural foods. To understand why this is and what's wrong with modern food, you really just have to understand a few basic concepts. Number 1, lack of fiber and micronutrients. Number 2, harmful food chemicals. Micronutrients are vitamins, minerals, and other chemicals that come from plants, which are essential to our body functioning properly. Fiber is indigestible plant fibers that help us feel full and satisfied after eating. Fiber is also what helps our digestive system stay strong and function as it's supposed to. Colorful vegetables and fruits are the most nutrient and fiber-dense foods on the planet. But how often does the average person eat colorful vegetables and fruits? And no, sadly, ketchup doesn't count. Without enough micronutrients and fiber, the human body develops nutritional deficiencies. So literally, the body doesn't have the nutrients it needs to perform essential functions, like building the body, producing energy, and eliminating toxins. The result is a person who's hungry all the time, gains weight, has low energy, and oftentimes becomes ill. Because this process predisposes a person to chronic disease. It also compromises their immune system, making them more susceptible to infection, cancer, heart disease, etc. Toxic chemicals and drugs in the food literally poison the body, destroying our natural health and predisposing us to illness. Oftentimes, this degenerative illness or chronic disease is an eventual slow kill. Common food toxins include chlorine, fluoride, MSG, refined sugar, high fructose corn syrup, preservatives, pesticides sprayed on crops, hormones, antibiotics, and the list really does go on. For a more in-depth guide on what you should be eating, you can check out the videos, The Easiest Diet Ever, What Not to Eat, and What to Eat. While of course there is a lot more information about nutrition out there, these two basic concepts will help guide you to a healthier diet. So, lack of micronutrients and fiber, and too many harmful food chemicals, really these two core things are at the basis of chronic disease and obesity. And if you can adjust your diet to consider those things, then you will improve your health and you will probably lose weight also. To really sink this home, let me give you an example. If we just looked at the ingredients on a Twinkie, we'd see a great example of a really lengthy ingredient list full of chemicals that were not manufactured, discovered, or isolated and used prior to 100 years ago. Things like bleached, refined white flour, high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated soybean, cottonseed, canola oils, dextrose, modified cornstarch, sodium acid pyrophosphate, monocalcium phosphate, cornstarch, isolated mono and diglycerides, polysorbate 60, dextrin, calcium caseinate, sodium stearolactylate, isolated wheat gluten, calcium sulfate, artificial colors, yellow number 5, and red 40. And that's just one single thing that we often mistakenly call food. So I want to give you a few tips to help you improve your diet using this new rule of thumb of eating foods that existed prior to 100 years ago. So tip number 1 is to get comfortable in the produce section of your grocery store. That is vegetables and fruits. Incorporating fruits and vegetables into your diet is one of the most important things you can do. And for convenience, you could opt for vegetables that don't even require cooking or preparation. So things like carrots, celery, spinach, etc. And incorporating some of these raw vegetables into your diet will significantly improve your health. Tip number 2, stop drinking sweetened and especially artificially sweetened carbonated beverages like soda pop. Just making this one small change in your diet will significantly improve your health, and many people lose a huge amount of weight simply giving up sodas. Tip number 3 is to invest in a water filter so that you can filter the fluoride and chlorine out of your water. And we will do a future video specifically about water filters and how to find a good one. But this is definitely a worthwhile investment that you can be drinking clean water. Another thing you can do to limit your fluoride exposure is to use a fluoride-free toothpaste. The best way to avoid food chemicals and toxic food additives is to avoid processed foods or anything with a really long ingredient list. In the produce and fruit vegetable area, you can opt for organic. But remember that even if you're eating non-organic produce, it still has way less chemicals and way less toxicity than any processed food. If you eat meat, you want to avoid any kind of processed meat or any meat product that has an ingredient list. So whole chunks of an actual piece of meat, avoiding things like hot dogs, bologna, chicken nuggets, and even hamburger meat. You also want to opt for grass-fed or pasture-raised meat products and dairy products, and we have a whole other video that talks more specifically about why that recommendation is so important in helping you avoid toxicity and avoid chemicals. When eating out, look for salad bars. Salad bars are going to offer you the widest variety of vegetables to help you fill up. You could also look for Asian restaurants. Oftentimes, Asian food will contain a huge amount of vegetables. And as long as it doesn't also have MSG, this can be a healthy option when we're eating out. It's worth noting that Asian countries have some of the lowest obesity rates in the world. Of course, we want to avoid those breaded, deep-fried foods that we often see on the menu, but opting for meals that are primarily made up of vegetables is a really great way to improve your health. In a future video, I'm going to talk more about water filters and how to select a good water filter in your price range. And in another video, I'm going to tell you what is actually inside of your Big Mac. So please be sure to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found this video helpful, and if you did, please be sure to click that like button for me and share this video with your friends. Be sure to subscribe to the Psyche Truth channel, and if you would like to learn more about me and my health coaching services, you can visit KarinaRachel.com. Thanks for watching. For some really simple tips on how to clean up your diet, check out my video, The Easiest Diet Ever. To find out the worst foods that you should be avoiding and healthy alternatives to replace them with, check out the video, What Not to Eat. To find out why Americans are seeing such huge rises in obesity and chronic disease, check out my video on the average American diet. Do you feel addicted to certain foods? Are there some foods you think you just couldn't give up? Check out our video on fast foods designed to be addictive.